Welcome to the Muscle Expert Podcast with Ben Pakulski, one of the world's top professional bodybuilders, an expert on human performance and mindset mastery. Ben dives deep to deliver the strategies of the top experts to upgrade your body, mind, muscle, strength, performance, biochemistry, and how to become the upgraded modern man. Join us on benpakulski.com to learn the cutting-edge techniques to take control of your body, your brain, and create your greatest life.
Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Muscle Expert Podcast. Today, I'm interviewing Mike Matthews, the author of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, what every man is after. We all want to get bigger, we all want to get leaner, we all want to get stronger, at least most of us. And Mike gets about 1.5 million unique views per month to his website, Muscle for Life. And today, we're going to dive deep into Mike's strategies for getting lean. He stays really lean year round. He's got an awesome attitude toward life, very similar to myself. And it's just like, keep your mouth closed and get to work. And I love that. We talk a little bit about muscle building and Mike's simple approach to maintaining an awesome physique year round, what works for him, and then how we can make it work for you. And then we dive into a little bit about starting a fitness business. So what does that look like for someone who, maybe one of my listeners, one of you guys out there, wants to start your own unique fitness business and you don't know how? So Mike gives us recommendations about books, his approach that grew him to a massive following, having sold over 400,000 books, actually one book. And he said in total he sold over 1 million books since 2012. That's a lot of books. So if you want to learn some strategies from Mike Matthews about how to be shredded all the time, make the most of your time, have a great attitude toward life, and build an online business, this podcast is for you. This podcast is brought to you by the MI40 Nation. You guys all love to train, and if you're not making the most of your workouts, you're wasting your time. So watching people on YouTube is a great strategy for some people. If you're someone who doesn't naturally fit into all exercises, then watching your favorite YouTube celebrity could possibly be the worst strategy for building muscles, because if they're not built like you, the exercises that they choose are not going to work for you. So in the MI40 Nation, I am releasing Hypertrophy Execution Mastery. And the beauty of this program is it's not what works for me. It's not how to do a bench press, quote unquote. It's how to pick an exercise for your body, how to execute an exercise for your body, for every body part. This is a 4-month masterclass. So we're picking 2 body parts per month. We're going deep so you can master execution for that body part. The first month is going to be chest and back, which for many people is a problem area. And those 2 areas are very similar, very highly correlated. So we'd like to pair those up. And I'd love for you guys to jump in there and check that out. You can check it out at executionmastery.com or at mi40nation.com. Enjoy the rest of the show. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Ben Pakulski, the Muscle Expert Podcast. Today, we're going deep on fat loss. My guest, Mike Matthews, is the author of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. You might know him for his online programs, The Shredded Chef, Eat Green, Get Lean, and Muscle for Life. Mike, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me on the show.
Mike is also the owner of Legion Supplements, which has been around since 2012, and highly properly dosed, efficaciously designed supplements. And our previous guest, Curtis Frank, is primarily the formulator, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of the research, the director of all research and development for us. So, and he's the super brain, the super supplement savant.
Man, he's a super bright guy, and we're so grateful to have him on. And, going forward, fat loss, Mike. So, you teach a lot about muscle building, and we can definitely go down that route if that's something you want to talk about. But there's a lot of misconceptions. And I know people are putting out a lot of books these days about, the most effective way to lose fat loss in 3 weeks or 21 days or, 19 and a half days.
It's always so many pounds in so many days, right?
Yeah, because, the psychology, the human psyche is drawn to that. Oh, I can do this in this short amount of time. And even if you don't believe it, I think unconsciously it's still appealing. Because I know I don't know if I fall for it. But
what if?
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah.
What
and
if?
It's a hugely appealing proposition, right? But I don't want to get into what's possible. What I want to get into is how should people be actually doing this shit? Like, let's talk about 4 months of like, hey man, I want to lose a little bit of body fat. Mm-hmm. Walk me down the path of your belief system and what you think the best line of approach is just for not just getting lean, right? Like I always tell people, don't just strive to get lean. It's like striving to make a few bucks, right? Strive to get absolutely inside out shredded, because that's what's going to rip you out of bed in the morning, right? It's for me, it's like, hey, I want to lose 5 pounds of body fat. I'm not going to get up in the morning at 4 o'clock to do cardio to lose a couple of pounds of body fat. Whereas if I have the goal to get striated glutes and get absolutely inside out, well, that's going to rip me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning and get super excited. So let's not talk about like just losing a few pounds. Let's talk about someone who, wants to go for the gusto here and wants to get absolutely inside out shredded, like you have numerous times for photo shoots, for book covers and appearances. So let's talk about that.
I think the first thing, right, is you have to be ready for some pain. Like that, you don't get that lean without paying the price, and the price is not it's not long-term physical or permanent physical damage, no, but it gets pretty uncomfortable. I mean, you've been leaner than I've ever been. I've been like at the fitness model level kind of lean, but I've never gotten on a stage and competed. Like I can't say that. Right. I don't know if my glutes have ever been striated.
You're pretty damn lean, man. I've seen pictures. You're pretty damn lean, so don't be so modest.
All right, well, I've gotten to where I felt like, all right, I think this is about it, right? This is what I've got. Yep. And so the first thing is, yes, it's a pain in the ass, right? So it takes you have to manage your energy balance properly. That's where you have to start, right? So you have to understand the relationship between how much energy you are eating and how much energy you are burning. And you have to understand that the only way to lose fat is to be in an energy deficit over time. We have over a century of metabolic research at this point that shows that is the only way to significantly reduce body fat. Now, it's not. So
let's talk about that, man. Let's talk. I want to go down that route. Sure. Because I question that, right? I question the authenticity of that. As someone who kind of tends to be the devil's advocate in many scenarios in my life, I question that calories in, calories out theory, because the more we learn about mitochondria, the more we learn about the microbiome, the more we learn about epigenetics, the more you start to realize that, a banana to me is not a banana to you. And meaning our bodies can do completely different things biochemically when we eat these foods. So there's got to be some, for my, and I'm not necessarily saying I know this, but this is my thought process. There's got to be some influence based on somebody's level of health, somebody's level of hormonal balance, somebody's microbiome, somebody's level of inflammation, somebody's level of cortisol, somebody's psychological state. If I'm in a stress state, definitively it's going to do different things in your body. So what would you have to say around that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely a case to be made there. Like, for example, I remember there were 2 papers that I had looked at, 2 studies where people, they were with very overweight, with obese people that had very, very poor insulin sensitivity, that they lost less fat on a high carb diet than obese people with, their insulin sensitivity was still kind of bad, but it wasn't as bad. So and that immediately comes to mind, for example. So that's something where you have a physiological condition that appears to impair fat loss despite there being a caloric deficit. So these people lost less fat than was predicted by just energy balance alone. So yes, I do agree that it's not necessarily that cut and dried for everybody, but I think that's where everybody should start, is with, let's keep it as simple as possible to start, right? And I recommend the same approach with muscle building as well. So, if you're somebody that wants to let's say you're a guy and you're at 20% body fat, what I generally tell guys at 20% body fat is, let's make 15% body fat your first milestone. And then let's see if you need to take a diet break. Let's see how you're doing psychologically. Let's see how you're doing physically. Let's see how you're sleeping. Let's see how your workouts are going. And, if everything feels good and you tell me, no, I'm great, let's keep going, then let's make 10% that next milestone, right? Now, I've worked with thousands of people now, just staying in touch with people. My email inbox is like over 100,000 emails by now. And so I've seen a lot with men and women, all ages, all circumstances. And so what I've seen most often is, you get to that every 5% or so, getting down to about 10. Most people seem to do well with a diet break. So, you just raise your calories back up, give your body a break, and then go back down. And from there, getting to 10%. So again, probably a good idea to take a break before you want to get super shredded, because every percent of body fat that you want to lose under 10% just gets progressively harder. You just have to work more and more for it, and you feel worse and worse, right? So coming back to your original point is I think it makes sense to start as simple as possible. So start with, let's say, a 20 to 25% caloric deficit, which requires that you understand how to accurately estimate your energy expenditure, which many people do not. Many people incorrectly assume they're burning more calories than they are. And it also requires that you are able to accurately estimate how many calories you're eating, which many people are not. Even if they get to the point of like, let's say if they have their measuring spoons and their measuring cups out every day and they think they're eating 2,000 calories, right? What they don't realize though is, okay, so they go to measure a cup of oatmeal, dry. And so they're like, cool, here's my cup, right? It's a slightly heaping cup, but it's a cup. And they log however many calories they log, in their MyFitnessPal or in their log for that cup of oatmeal. What they don't realize though is the cup that they logged was assuming, let's say 80 grams of dry oatmeal, but they just put 100 grams in their cup. Oh, they just accidentally ate whatever that is, an extra 80 calories, let's say, in that meal. Mm-hmm. Rinse and repeat for the tablespoon of peanut butter that was a bit over, for blah, blah, blah. And it goes on, it goes on and on.
Who does that, Mike? Nobody does that.
A little bit more. Come on, man. It can't really matter. And
as long as it fits on one tablespoon, it counts.
Exactly.
Man. That's always the rule.
Exactly. And so you have your energy balance, right? And then, of course, you have your macronutrient balance. And we all know that a calorie is not a calorie as far as body composition goes. We all know that. A high protein, like I recommend, again, if we're just starting at what's probably going to be the best place for most people is going to be a high protein, higher carb, moderate fat diet if you are exercising a lot, especially if you are doing a lot of resistance training. That's my general recommendation for people to start. Now, not necessarily if you want to get super shredded, because I think, again, the first goal is to get to, before you can get super shredded as a guy at least, you got to get to like 10%. We got to get you to 10% before, we can get you to 6.
Yeah, let's talk about some of the limitations of taking someone from 20 to 10. So most people in their fat loss endeavors are going to go into some type of restrictive eating. Maybe they're going to start doing some type of cardiovascular. Maybe they're going to be doing more weight training and cardiovascular. And you talked about maybe the solution is they're taking a few days off in between to maybe get some type of metabolic reset happening. Any experience or thought process around those people who go from 20 to 10 and are actually getting substantial amount of muscle loss because they're in the caloric deficit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, honestly, I've only seen that, and I'd be curious if you've seen otherwise, but where I've personally seen that, I have not experienced it myself. I've never lost any amount of muscle that I could really, that I could notice going from... Yeah, I mean, right. Going from...
That's where the hormone thing comes in, right?
Yeah, and actually, funny enough, so to that point, yes, you have your catabolic hormones versus your anabolic hormones, and I've never actually gotten a blood test. I don't know where my hormones are at. I just never had the need to. You know what I mean? And but I wouldn't be surprised. I did do a genetic test, and one of the little interesting things that came of that is that I had I forget the word. There's a technical term for this. It's like it's a way that a gene can express itself, a polymorphism, I believe, that was associated. That
single nucleotide polymorphism, SNP.
So that is associated with higher testosterone levels. So like they would see that in a lot of athletes that they would work with, for example. Yep. And I also had another polymorphism that was associated with just enhanced recovery, muscle recovery in particular. And otherwise, and that would explain why I've been able to gain a fair amount of muscle despite not really having the anatomy for it. I'm 6'2". I have long arms. I have long legs. The muscle insertions are not made for strength. Like I'm not naturally a very strong person. You know what I mean? My body is probably more made for endurance, honestly, than strength. So yes, to that point is, okay, so you have somebody who, let's say you have a guy, low testosterone, generally, higher cortisol, which obviously there is an inverse relationship there. If you have higher cortisol, you're going to have lower testosterone. And then that guy goes and tries to aggressively diet down from 20% body fat to 5%. That's just not going to go well. And I have come across a couple instances of that. I can't say I confirmed it because I didn't have blood work with them, but based on what they were telling me, very high stress. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think that they went super low calorie, blah, blah, blah.
That's where I'm going, man. And I think that's a huge issue with people going into these dieting phases who start doing cardio, which puts up cortisol, start blocking carbohydrates, which puts up cortisol or prevents it from coming down. And they go, man, I'm just not losing fat anymore. And you go, okay, well, what are you doing? And they're backed themselves into a corner, and their cortisol is massively elevated. So their body's constantly breaking down muscle tissue. It's constantly typically storing fat. Their testosterone goes in the toilet. And they back themselves.
Remember also water retention goes way up. So, you could be losing fat. I mean, we have like the famous Minnesota starvation study, right? And and so from that we can definitely see that you can be losing fat. Now, I mean, obviously what those guys were under, it wasn't a true, I wouldn't say torturous, but it was pretty rough. Like they were eating half of their daily expenditure, and they were having to do some 5-6 hours of physical activity every day, but because of water retention, of course, it can be completely obscured, which I'm sure, I mean, you have that whoosh effect, right, where if you can correct that, sometimes you can all of a sudden see that, oh, for the last month I actually have been losing fat. I just have been, my water retention was getting really bad because of these other factors. What I've never seen, and I've never seen evidence for, seen a convincing argument for, is how you can gain body fat in a caloric deficit, a true caloric deficit.
I'll tell you definitively that I've done it myself.
And I'm actually curious, what are the details? Like, how does that play out?
I'm being honest with you. So, man, I experimented with fasting. So with a guy with as much muscle as I have, and to be honest, I was probably 8% body fat. And I started experimenting with fasting. And my activity level was very high. My stress levels were very high. I've got 3 kids, multiple businesses, a bunch of things that are stressful in my life. Yeah. And I was just like, hey, man, I feel good. I'm going to fast. And, I would do it I did it for a couple of weeks at a time, where I would have maybe 1 meal a day.
Do you know approximately how many calories that meal was?
I would say maybe about 1,200 calories, 12 to 1,400 calories a day. So
why did you want to do that? That sounds awful.
Well, because I was trying to lose muscle, right? So as a guy who,
but that makes sense.
So characteristically, I walked around at 300 plus pounds for 15 years. Wow. And I was like, all right, time to lose some of this. Okay. I just wanted to lose scale pounds, right? Yep. Like I wanted to lose muscle mass. I wanted to lose fat. Yep. Definitively. I got my body weight went down. I went down from maybe where I started was 268 and I got down to about 258. Okay. But definitively my body fat went up, like probably 14% in 6 weeks. Like not up 14%, but up to 14%. So from
how did you measure that, out of curiosity?
Visually, but we did calipers. So I've been doing it a long time. I've done 50 or 60 DEXs in my life. So I've got a pretty good idea of what it is. So we did calipers.
And it wasn't water. Like you were just straight fatter.
Straight fatter.
That's 100% that's bizarre. Fatter. That's bizarre.
I test everything, right? So everyone's doing this fasting thing now. I'm like, I want to test and see what happens. So there's outliers, man. There's outliers with this, because if you look at my energy balance, I obviously have more muscle mass than I have fat. Yeah. So my body goes, well, what do I have more of? And this is my logic. I could be completely wrong with this, but my body goes, what do I have more of? Well, let's burn more of that. And it held on to all my fat. And because my cortisol was higher, it's honestly was surprising to me. My macros were, I probably ate, I don't know, man, not that I want to get into details, but maybe 40 to 50 grams of carbs a day tops. Okay. And the rest of it was protein and fat. Yeah. But it was very minimal, man. And it's really surprising. My training intensity certainly dropped off. Yeah, of course. Which could be a consideration, but it's really interesting, man. Because I don't put any judgment or weight on my results. I'm just purely observationally to answer your question, because you brought it up. Yeah, man. Yeah. It's interesting that.
And so it was 10 pounds, because obviously as your weight goes down, a percentage is a percentage. Yeah. But do you have an estimate of an absolute amount of fat that you feel like you gained in that? So you came down 10 pounds.
Yeah.
And
if I had to guess, it's probably at least 6 to 8 pounds. Maybe, I don't know. That's a guess, man. I should have probably did a little bit better job with the metrics, but I wasn't doing it for any particular testing reasons.
Yeah. You're just doing it for your own personal, right? Just like you wanted to lose, because it get a little bit smaller, basically.
Man, like I said, I'm writing a book. I've also got hundreds of clients that we work with, and everyone always asks about fasting. Like, hey, Ben, what do you think? And I'm not against fasting, but I realize that you need to do it in the right scenarios. Yep. And you need to be very aware of manipulating your hormones, because if your cortisol is too elevated, your sleep is going to get very disrupted, which mine did. I slept much less. My energy levels were amazing during the day. I felt fantastic.
Despite not sleeping. That's interesting. or not sleeping as well.
Yeah, running on cortisol.
Yeah, true.
I like the way I feel. I could see why entrepreneurs like intermittent fasting because, man, my energy is just consistent. My brain focus is great. My body doesn't spend tons of time digesting food, so I feel great. But yeah, it was an interesting observation. Like I said, that's one time N equals one, and I may do it again. I'm actually planning on doing it again. So I'm currently going to be starting to get in shape to do some photo shoots for my book.
Sure.
And then after that, I may play with some more fasting and see how it goes.
Interesting.
But yeah, anyways, tangent, man. So tangent. So let's say you start into a 16-week fat loss preparation phase for yourself, Mike. Tell me what that looks like. What is your what happens with your training? What happens with your nutrition?
So I'm actually doing that right now. It's not going to be 16 weeks because I'm starting off. I'm already like fairly lean, and I just want to get.
So how long?
So my plan is 6 to 8 weeks. I think that's what it'll take. I mean, obviously it'll go by what I see in the mirror first and foremost, but I'm thinking 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep.
And I'd say the longest cut that I've done in a while, even when I was at my leanest, I was probably 12 to 14 weeks, just because, I mean, generally I kind of have always been, let's say anywhere between 10 and 13.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 10 to 13% is kind of where I hang out, right? But I like to start, I actually don't train anything. I don't change anything in terms of my weightlifting. So I do a lot of heavy compound weightlifting, push for progressive overload. Again, I really kind of stick to the basics. And I program some additional accessory work for, at like shoulders. My shoulders are never going to be big enough, basically. So I do extra shoulder work. I'm training lower body twice a week. I'm happy with where my lower body's at. I'm fairly happy with my physique on the whole. So it's kind of like I have a push-pull legs, that's where I start. And then I have some accessory work built around that specifically for what I want to do with my physique. And so I actually don't change anything in that regard. I still try to make progress. I still try to gain reps if I can. And I usually don't start with cardio. I just bring my calories down, and I like to add cardio in once it becomes necessary. So again, for some of the reasons that you just brought up.
How do you gauge that?
Progress, right? So weighing myself every day and then doing a weekly average, a 7 or 10 day average, also taking caliper measurements. Not that I care to extrapolate that to body fat, because who cares? It's more just, it's just seeing, okay, cool. Is my suprailiac going down? Great. And then waist measurement as well. And so then that gives you a picture, obviously, of what's going on with your body comp. And so, just knowing my body, it's usually I get 3 or 4 weeks of easy fat loss where I don't have to work that hard for it. All I have to do is, drop my calories. And I don't want to then just continue dropping calories again for all the reasons that we just discussed. I'm not going to go for what was Lyle McDonald's? It's like 500 calories a day, just protein. You know what I mean? Like really aggressive, protein sparing modified fasting. I think it's called. It's misery.
I think it's obscene. Yeah, it's kind of silly.
It's misery. So at that point, I will add some cardio in. I personally like to do high intensity cardio. I do it on a bike. And the reason why is because you get the most fat loss for your time. So like obviously a 25 minute high intensity bike workout is just, you're going to burn more fat than 20 or 25 minutes of just LISS. Not that I think there's anything wrong with LISS. If I were going to do LISS and I had more time I wanted to give to it, I'd probably just walk. I'd probably go with something that has the least amount of physiological impact. Because you get a good 300 to 400 calories per hour of walking if you're like walking with some intention. So I'll add cardio in. Usually it's HIIT, and I'll start with probably 20 or 25 workouts per week, and then by the end of my cuts I'll usually be doing 4, but I don't do more than that because again I'm just cognizant of I can only push my body so far before things start to go upside down. And
the beauty of what you said there, Mike, is moderation. And that's where I think you're doing it right. And that's where a lot of people go wrong is because you're not in a rush. And this is why I suggest 16 weeks for people, man. So understanding a little bit my thought process, the first 4 to 8 weeks, depending on how much body fat you got to lose, is usually spent on accumulating muscle, improving your contractile ability, improving your body's ability to use more muscles in every contraction, in every rep, and thereby increasing the caloric expenditure, potentially even increasing your body's ability to sustain work, to sustain volume. So we get your volume and ability to do work up, and then we can start pulling your calories down a little bit, right? So a lot of people, when I start, quote unquote diet, the calories go up, and because we're trying to sustain more work, and then once we get this work capacity up, then we can slowly start pulling those calories calories down, all of a sudden, hooray, we're actually eating more calories than we were before, and we're actually losing muscle or we're losing fat. So, that's why I usually suggest for more people going a little bit longer.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, for someone like yourself, for someone like yourself who's naturally very lean, or at least stays very lean, I would say naturally anything, but stays very lean, shorter period of time in moderation makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, exactly. So that's and then along the way, I'll usually also, I like to train fasted, not because in and of itself it makes a big difference, but I combine it with caffeine, synephrine, and yohimbine. And it's the yohimbine and synephrine in particular that I like. I mean, caffeine's fine as well, and it makes them more effective. But of course, yohimbine doesn't work really. If your insulin levels are elevated, it doesn't really do anything as far as fat burning goes. So I also will do my workouts fasted, simply so I can get those supplements. And yes, I have a supplement company, but it's kind of a unique type of supplement company. And that one of the first things that I'll say about supplements is you don't need supplements at all, period, to do whatever it is that you want to do with your body. I would say if you have the budget and you have the inclination, some supplements make sense to add to your regimen depending on your goals, even if your goal is simply to be healthy. And so that's also something I do like to add, because I've done it now several times with and without supplements, the fat loss in particular, and it goes faster with the supplements. It just does.
Sure. So, Mike, over your left shoulder, I see Bill Phillips' Body for Life book there, and I want to bring up your book, man. So, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. You wrote that in 2012. Tell me a little bit about that.
So, yeah, I mean, it was just a kind of a lark. I wrote it because I had heard about Amazon's KDP platform, right? And
I don't know what that is.
So
what is
it's
that?
Kindle Direct Publishing. It's their self-publishing platform.
Okay.
So it allows you to just, hey, write a book, put it up on Amazon. You're out in you're on their marketplace. Good luck, right? And I'd heard about it because there was a guy named John Locke, who was the first KDP author, so their first self-published author to sell 1 million books. And and his story is kind of cool too. He made a bunch of money in insurance, I think it was. He built up an insurance company, sold it, did it again, sold it for even more money. And then he was like, all right, well, I'm done with money. And he always just wanted to write books. So he wrote, I haven't read any of them because they're primarily for women. They're just kind of, I think, fun stories. They have sex, they have violence. He just totally was like, this is what he wanted to do, right? And because he didn't care about money, he priced them at 99 cents, which at the time was very unheard of. Now everybody has 99-cent books, but because he didn't give a shit. He's like, I don't care if, whatever. If I make no money off this, doesn't matter to me. And it turned out to be a really good hook, because it was like they were, he actually put time into them, and he really did try to write a good book. And 99 cents? I actually liked this book. You know what I mean? So he exploded, and then Amazon used that to promote their platform, saying, hey, this could be you, right? You could be the next John Locke. And so that's how I heard about it. And I was like, I had always been interested in writing, and that was kind of just, again, random. I was always a good student growing up. I like to read. And so that's how one day I was like, I bet you I would like to write. I mean, I like to read. I could probably do this. I could write stuff. And and so my original interest was actually fiction. I wanted to write novels, and I still have an abiding interest in it. It's just I don't have time that I want to give it right now. That'll be in my next phase. When I'm at some point I will do that, but it's just I'm not going to give it the time right now. So, anyways, I wrote Bigger, Leaner, Stronger as a simple kind of minimum viable product. What's a book that I wish somebody had given me back when I was 17?
That's exactly the answer, right?
Yeah. So that's what that book was. And initially it was not very long. It was 130 pages. And I didn't try to make it super sexy. I didn't try to say that I had some big breakthrough or even that I figured anything out. I mean, I was just I've learned some things from other smart people, and here are the things that I've learned, and they've worked really well for me, and they're based on good science, so they'll probably work really well for you too. I don't know everything. I don't get everything right. Nobody does. So here, try this, basically, and if it works, great. And it did very well. And so now, I've sold, I want to say, close to 300. I have to look at my spreadsheet. I want to say about 350 or so thousand copies of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger now since publishing it in 2012. And I've published other books, and I've sold over 1 million books now. So it's kind of just one of those serendipitous things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, good for you. So it was kind of one of those things most businesses start off, most entrepreneurs end up teaching what they needed to learn, right?
Scratch your own itch.
We go through struggles. Yeah, exactly. We go through struggles, and we know there's tons of people out there fighting the same battle.
Yep, exactly.
So what were the main points that you feel as though you touched on that book that, looking back, or anyone out there who's early in their journey, what were the things that you touched on that book that you think they should address?
Well, I guess I think the first thing was probably the big mistakes that I was making, before educating myself, basically. So on the training side of things, for example, I didn't put very much work into heavy compound weightlifting. It was a lot of isolation work. It was a lot of very, very high rep stuff, a lot of fancier type of programming techniques that have their uses. But for most people, unless you're just a crazy high responder to weightlifting, it's hard to beat a simple approach of, let's say, heavy squatting, heavy deadlifting, heavy pressing, and pushing for progressive overload, as opposed to.
So tell me about that. So I want to learn about your experience with squats, deads, and bench presses, because that's one of the sound bites that we hear most often, and that people say, "Hey, man, you should just do more compound lifting." Why?
Because again, I'm coming at it from what's most likely to work best for most people and give you the most bang for your buck, so to speak, right? And I do believe that is the best place for people that are new to resistance training to start, assuming that they can do it, right? So assuming they don't have pre-existing injuries or issues that make that impossible, or make that just that contraindicate that due to increased risk of injury and so forth. So that's, again, the place where I would say this is where I would recommend people that start, and specifically people that are limited in their time. So let's say you have anywhere from 3 to 5 hours a week. That's how much time you can spend in the gym. And that's a lot of the people that follow me. I mean, I'm one of those people myself. I mean, I guess I can do whatever I want with my time, so to speak, but not really. Like, if I want to continue along if I want to keep all these plates spinning, then I can't be in the gym 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. Something else has to give, right? And also, of course, they're time-proven principles. So you have strength training programs out there like Starting Strength that have been around forever, and you can gain, with good programming. I think the average guy, regardless of age, should be able to gain anywhere from 15 to probably 25 pounds of actual muscle, not just weight, in their first year. And if you look at the research on that, that's probably 25 pounds. It's probably hard for anybody to gain more than that, regardless of what they do, assuming that there are no drugs involved. So if you can get there with a more minimalist type of approach, why not just do that?
Do you find that you always executed those exercises well? Do you find like you're kind of a natural squatter, deadlifter, bencher? They can pretty easily do?
That's a good question. The technique, I would say yes, but that's probably because I grew up playing sports. So, I played baseball when I was younger, and then I played a lot of hockey, and I also played golf. Golf is a weird technical sport that requires good awareness of your body and what's going on, and precision, right? And so yes, I would say that. What I did was, and this is what I recommend to anybody, is of course you watch videos, you learn about the technique, right? And then you video yourself, and you don't try to just jump into heavy weights and just go balls to the wall, but make sure that on video you can look at your squat, deadlift, overhead press, bench press, or whatever, and you could compare it to a model and say, all right, I'm pretty close. And the movements being, yes, they're obviously. A squat is a little bit more difficult to execute than a leg press, but I wouldn't say it's a tremendously difficult movement. It's not a golf swing, for example. A golf swing is much harder to do.
Sure, but making the assumption that everyone is built differently,
right,
and everyone's going to thereby get different muscular recruitment, different results, different potential pathologies from these exercises. What do you recommend for those? Like, obviously you've dealt with a lot of clients in your life. A lot of people reading your books. What's the suggestion for the outliers? So, this is the funny thing about outliers is I think it's more like 75% of people that are actually outliers for those exercises, right? Like, most people assume that you fit into those exercises, but I think more people than not don't fit into those exercises
and how
because
so?
of their inability to. I'll explain. Yeah. So their inability to muscularly control those exercises, the ranges that you're being asked to go through. Most people can't actually actively control them with their musculature. Obviously, young people is an exception. Some people are very athletic. That's an exception. Most people that I run into are so banged up that they can't get to the bottom of a squat with, anywhere past 90 degrees of hip flexion. They can't get to the bottom of a deadlift without rounding the thoracic spine. They can't get into the bottom of a bench press or touch their chest without doing some type of elevation and protraction of the shoulders. So that's my, why I bring up those questions, man. Is like, what is the troubleshooting for those people? So I'm not saying that your suggestion is wrong, because I actually agree with that too. But what's the step before that for all those people who go, man, like when I squat, it hurts. When I deadlift, it hurts. When I bench press, my shoulders hurt. What do I do with those guys?
I mean, I've heard from a number of people, obviously over the years. I would say, in my experience, and this is strictly speaking from people that I've heard via the books mostly, right? And also via the blog where I've recommended a lot of the same types of things. I would say that my personal experience has been that the majority of people can do fine with those exercises so long as they learn proper technique and don't get too zealous. But I definitely have heard from quite a few people that have not been able to do them for reasons like you're describing, or pre-existing injuries. Like there is going to be no deadlifting because of, a lower back injury that they sustained, who knows what at some time. Right. So for that, it's always just like, and I've had people email me worried that because they can't squat, they're fucked, right? Like, oh, I can't squat or I can't deadlift. Right. There's no hope for me, right? And that's totally not true. Not at all. You can do everything that you want to do with your physique without squatting, without deadlifting, without bench pressing, without overhead pressing. Absolutely. I'm 100%.
Sure.
Like, there's no question about that. So there, it's just finding workarounds, right? So there are always, like, for example, if they can't squat, can they leg press? If they can't squat, can they do maybe a unilateral? Like, could they do a split squat, or can they do a lunge? Or, for hamstrings, you have various options. If nothing else, you can do a lying hamstring curl, right? So there's and even take the deadlift. Okay, so we have to break that down now. We could do some hip thrusts for some posterior chain. We could do, depending on their situation, they may be able to do something like good mornings. We have options. So yes, I would say that, you don't have to squat, deadlift, bench press, overhead press, but if you can, and this has been, I can't say that there's any research that at least that comes to mind immediately. There's some research out there probably on muscle activation for the squat and the bench press in particular versus variations. But I'd say if you can squat and deadlift and then bench press, overhead press, and progress without having pain or problems, then that's probably a good idea. You're gonna benefit from it. You know what I mean?
Completely agree, man. Great, greatest bang for your buck as far as using the greatest amount of musculature at once. If you're someone whose time is a consideration, one of the reasons I think that paradigm always needs to be questioned. And listen, man, my rule in life is always play the devil's advocate, because it ends up bringing up a good conversation. But one of my reasons for always challenging that paradigm is if you look throughout the history of our lives, and you look at the people that we model as far as being the best role models for bench pressing, or the best role models for deadlifting, or for squatting, are the people who tend to be really good at it, right? So you're watching somebody on YouTube, and like Ed Cohen deadlifts 1,000 pounds, and and he has a huge ass and huge lower back. I want to get a huge lower back, and I'm gonna deadlift like Ed Cohen, or I want to get huge quads like Tom Platz, so thereby I should squat, or I want to get a huge chest like these powerlifters, thereby I should bench press. But they fit that exercise, and we don't always. And that paradigm needs to be always challenged for some people out there, and being like, hey, man, you may not fit in that exercise the same way I do. So don't watch those exercises I do and do them Yeah, figure out what works.
I mean,
for
I
you,
agree,
you know?
especially when you're talking about weight.
Still do
when you're
them.
talking about, you're looking around on Instagram, and you don't know what you're looking at half the time anyway of what's going on behind. What's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But still, I absolutely agree. Like your body, your anatomy matters, and what a lot of people don't realize about people that are very good at weightlifting is, one, they generally have bodies that are just built for it. They have the way that their muscles insert. That you have limb lengths, you have, so they're just able to generate so much more force. Beautiful. And I've run into that.
So Mike,
I've squatting is it's hard for me. I've never squatted more than 365 for 3. Now, to be fair, I haven't programmed for it. I never programmed for squatting multiple times a week because I didn't want to, but I had to work hard for what is considered meh kind of numbers. You know what I mean?
That's a pretty good number for a guy who's 6'2", man. I mean, that's nothing to snuff at for sure. So, man, moving along, changing directions a little bit. I got a lot of. I think what you've done in the fitness industry is very unique, or at least very, very brilliant. So you're an early adopter. You're someone who came in and basically started your fitness journey. You said, I'm going to act right now. I'm going to create this business, create a really successful business, have a massive following. I think a lot of my listeners are sitting at home questioning whether or not they should get started in the fitness industry. And you dove right in and said, hey, man, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to create a supplement company. I'm going to do all these things. What advice do you have for people who are sitting there, maybe they're interested in the fitness industry, maybe they're in the fitness industry and they don't know how to kind of get the ball rolling on creating a successful business?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Another question I do get asked a lot. I'm sure it's a question you get asked a lot as well. And I'd be curious. I want you to jump in here too at any point because I'm curious. Because so my take on that. I mean, I think of several things. One is I'm big on content marketing personally. So that's something that I feel is my what is it? I guess from Jim Collins's book, my hedgehog concept. Here's the thing that I can be excellent at, and that if I just do this very, very well, my one thing, to reference another book, right? If I can do this
Peter Thiel?
No, that's 0 to 1. No, the one thing, the one thing by Keller.
Oh, that, yeah. I know
it's actually a good book. It seems to be. It looks like it's going to be a gimmick.
No, I've read it as
so
well.
My one thing that I chose, the thing that I felt I could get so good at that people couldn't ignore me, right? Cal Newport is content creation. Is content creation and writing in particular. And so that's what I mean. I've put a shitload of time into writing. I've published over 1 million words of free articles on my blogs. I've written probably close, I don't know, maybe 500,000 words between the books, and I'm working on new books, and I'm always writing, and I've improved a lot as a writer. I look at the stuff I wrote, years ago, and I'm like, this is terrible.
It should be that way though, right? I always say to myself, if I read something I wrote 12 months ago and I don't think it's terrible, I haven't evolved enough.
It's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
So that's a first thing that is something that I was like, okay, what can I do that's going to stand out? So anybody trying to get in, trying to break into the fitness industry, I do think that you need to have something that stands out, and it doesn't have to be content. That's what I've chosen because, and the reason why I looked at it and I was like, just being objective, saying, all right, I have a good physique, I do, and I'm happy with it. And I'd say most guys would be probably pretty happy to have my physique. I'm not interested in becoming a competitive physique athlete, and I'm not interested in becoming a competitive bodybuilder.
Good choice.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think I even have the genetics for it, honestly. Like, you give me all the drugs, it doesn't matter. Sure, I will look bigger and better, but I question if I would even be able to do it, right? Because a lot of people, I mean, just as a quick thing, don't realize that when you have guys that are, professional bodybuilders, these guys are, it's not, they were like the super responders to weightlifting from the first day they ever picked up a weight. Like there's a
everyone except for me.
Yeah, I mean there's, and hey, I'm not familiar with your career. Yeah. All I'm saying is, like, though you have the potential, your muscular potential is much higher than the average person's, period. I would assume, maybe I'm wrong. And it looks like I'm wrong, but that's fine. But
oh, hey man, I don't ever want to. I try to get away from the genetic argument, man, because I started off as a fat 155 pound, 5'10" guy, right. Man. Like, when I say fat, I was maybe 16 to 18% body fat, 155 pounds. And at 17 years old, and by the time I was 19, I was 260.
See, but very few people could do that. They don't. It's not in them.
I don't know, man. I had I also went from being a long distance runner to vegetarian. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a good 260, but it was 260, and it got strong. And I don't know if I have great muscle building genetics, but certainly not as good as the guys I was competing against,
and that's,
I think my genetics was more for being stubborn and putting two middle fingers up to the world and saying, you think I can't do it, I'm going to do it twice. That's always the mentality.
So anyways, but to get back to your question. So, I was like, okay, that's not the direction I'm going to go in. I don't really like a lot about I don't like the fitness scene in general, the fitness community, the culture a lot of it does not resonate with me. The darker, the narcissism and the neuroticism. And so I'm like, I don't want to be an influencer, right? I don't care about vlogging and building a YouTube channel or getting a bunch of attention, because again, I was like, that doesn't build a business. Your entire everything is owned by another company. And if one day, who knows, maybe you're gone, that's it.
YouTube decides to shut you down.
Exactly. Oh, there goes your million subscribers.
It happens, man.
And so,
it happens.
So in looking at it, I was like, okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go all in on creating really good content. And first I'm going to focus on written content because that's what I like to do. And there are a lot of people out there that like to consume written content.
How did you get over the initial trepidation or feeling of inadequacy that so many people face? And I'm sure at some level you question that too.
Yeah, I mean, you always have imposter syndrome to some degree, right? And I mean, this might just be something about my personality. I just personally don't struggle with that very much, and that might even be a shortcoming. I mean, but it's something where I guess like in the beginning, I don't think. I'm into planning. I'm into like going, how am I going to do this? Bob the Builder, how do we fix this? So how am I going to do this? Right. Until I can convince myself that I have a good plan. If I can do that, then I should be able to, at least there's a high probability that I can get the result that I want. And from there, I kind of just like, no more thinking, and I just do it, and let's see. And yes, I could have wasted all my time. Not that maybe whatever the time that I spent on Bigger, Leaner, Stronger could have been wasted. Could have sold nothing, and who knows. But that doesn't bother me. Maybe because also fundamentally, and you're probably the same way, is I like to work. I'm not afraid of exerting effort. I'm not afraid of, spending my time and my energy and my attention on things. I actually enjoy it. So, there's a part of me, maybe it's a masochistic part, that if I were out digging ditches every day, there's a part of me that would still enjoy it. Like it could serve no purpose, but at least I'm out there exerting effort. And there's something to be said about the nobility of just being able to do that for its own sake. Kind of like Mixaheli, flow. I butchered his last name, but flow state, right? Getting into that flow state.
Yeah,
there you go. Hey, you're better than I am. So yes. So in the beginning, that was like cool. I think this could be something. Who knows? I'm just going to do it. And so that's kind of how I've approached everything, even the supplement business. In getting into it, where like I go. I was actually talking to my partner, Jeremy, at the time. We were like, okay, there's an opportunity to do supplements, but how much pain are we willing to take for this? You know what I mean? Like, how much pain are you willing to take for this? How much shit are you willing to go through? Because this is not going to be easy. Nothing's ever easy. Regardless of, how easy it might seem going into it, it's always going to take more time, more effort. You're always going to have more distractions that you're going to have to, shield yourself from, and there's always going to be reasons to quit and whatever. So going into it, I just know myself and that's again just knowing my personality, and this has definitely been a thing, but it's become more of a thing as I've continued in my career, that I don't care how hard something is. It means nothing to me. If I think there's a way I can do it and I want to do it, then I do it. And if I have to suffer, who fucking cares? I don't care. You know what I mean? Similar like we were talking with your dieting, like you're not sleeping, but you had a reason to do it. Yeah, you suffered. Whatever. So a bit of that probably helped.
Tomorrow is always another day to make a decision, right? And suffering today, it's always like if people on a diet go like, I have to eat this cookie. When you wake up tomorrow, that cookie's still going to be there, So at the, so for you, like suffering through anything, whether it be dieting or working, if I decide to stop tomorrow, one, I know that I've failed, but tomorrow's still there. I can still make a decision to go another direction tomorrow. Like, failure just shouldn't be an option until you've achieved your goal.
I totally agree.
You can choose to pull the plug at any minute, but if you choose to pull the plug, realize you chose to pull the plug.
Yeah, and that's okay sometimes too. I mean, I actually have had that discussion back to even your original question with people saying, okay, so I've had people that have emailed me, hey, so I'm thinking of starting a supplement company. How do you find a manufacturer? Okay, so if you're asking that question, don't.
Yeah, you're fired.
Don't. Yeah, just don't.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you fucking Google supplement manufacturer, that's it. And then you got to start humping. You got to start going. So there's nothing wrong, I think, with saying everybody wants everything, right? Everybody wants things. Great. That's fine. That's the wrong, that's goal setting what you want. Who cares what you want? What really matters is what are you willing to pay? What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? Take the things that you care the most about. And for a lot of people, that's things that make them feel good. It's Netflix, it's food, it's hanging out with friends, it's sex, it's whatever. How much of that shit are you willing to give up? And how much, again, coming back to how much pain are you willing to go through to get what you want to get? I recently watched the Tom vs. Time. I watched the first episode of it, right? As a Facebook documentary thing. And he said something that I really liked. So he said that he has given, 18 years now of his life to football, or 20 years or whatever it is. And basically he said, if you want to compete with me, then you better be willing to give up your life, because that's what I'm doing. And he lives it. He doesn't just say the words. I mean, that dude, and when you really actually, like, if you go read about how he has lived his life and even how he got to where he is, he gave up literally everything, starting at probably 13 years old is when he started playing football. And he was bad in the beginning. Like, he was slow. He had a good arm, but he is a nothing. He sat on the bench for his first season in high school, right? But he, starting then, decided he was going to give up everything. He didn't care what he had to give up. He didn't care if every waking moment of every day had to be spent trying to become a football player. That's what he was going to do. And look at that. He's the greatest greatest quarterback ever, or arguably, or whatever, right? And so I don't think I'm necessarily, I don't know if I could do what Tom Brady has done, even from that perspective alone. But I'd say I probably have a bit more of that than the average person. So for somebody, again, if you're thinking about what how do I get into the fitness industry? If your thought is, how do I make a bunch of money really fast and really easily? Just don't waste your time, because it's just not going to happen unless you have some super freak fluke type thing, right? Where, like, yeah, I guess if you're a 19-year-old kid and you're super good looking and you have an insane physique and you just make a YouTube channel where you run around and show off.
But even that only lasts a very short amount of time. We see so many of those, right?
Flash in the pan, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys don't make shit for money, actually,
right.
Because you don't get paid that much if you're shilling for, like, Gymshark or something. So, sure. So those were two things I think is the pieces of advice that I tell people is you got to find something that's going to set you apart, something that is valuable that you can really get good at. I like content creation personally. Entertainment is another big thing. Look at the bro science guy. He entertains people. He's very good at entertaining people. Yeah. That is his thing. So you don't have to create educational, informative content. Entertainment is another option. But regardless, you got to find something that you can do very well that will make you unique. 2, you have to be in very, very good shape. Don't try to become a fitness person if you look like shit. Why would someone listen to you? If you're going to go, you're going to go learn to play tennis and you're going to go see the person that sucks at tennis, you're not going to get lessons from the person that sucks at tennis, regardless of how much they might be able to say they know about tennis.
Sure.
So you got to walk the walk, which means you got to pay the fucking price, basically, again, of, like, what does it really take to stay lean?
Yep.
And this is something I don't think many people talk about. We can talk about the mechanics of staying lean, sure, energy balance, macronutrient balance, nutrient timing, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, what does it really take to stay, let's say as a guy, 7, 8, 9% body fat year round? you have to not give a shit about food. You have to essentially, you're eating the same meals every single day, 7 days a week. When you're that lean, and you know this, you can't go out to restaurants and just blow yourself up and think that you can just, your body will just, those calories just evaporate into the air. No, a portion of them stick to you, like you said with the cookie, right?
Yep.
And so are you willing to do that?
Yeah, and some people will think, I can just train harder tomorrow, but then the training harder leads to more inflammation and more cortisol, which sometimes
or even more eating. Your appetite goes up, and you're like, well, now I'm hungry. I'm training more, but I'm doing cardio every day now, but now I'm more hungry.
Yep.
And so you have to look. I think you have to at least have the type of physique that the people you want to sell to want to have.
Yep.
Right. At least you got to start there. And then from there, and then if you're willing to suffer, if it matters that much to you, and you can say, I'm willing to to put numbers on it. If somebody were to tell me they really want to be successful and they're not willing to work 80 hours a week for the first year to get somewhere, I would say, yeah, I mean, that's sure. I'm just trying to start, I'm starting. If you're not willing to at least start there, then just don't bother, dude. Just don't bother, because it's not going to happen. And there's nothing wrong with, I think there's nothing wrong with assessing a goal realistically, right? And actually challenging yourself. How much do I really want this? And then if you decide, actually, I don't want this, I'm not willing to do that, I don't think that you should necessarily feel ashamed for not doing it. I think that's probably a smart decision.
So you are a big advocate of content marketing, and the world, and this is my judgment of it, the world is becoming bombarded, and you'll probably agree at some level, with messaging everywhere, right? We've got so much marketing. We've got so many bells.
Overwhelming.
Yep. So what's the future of content marketing? What's the future of getting people's attention in your eyes? Is it a different medium? Is it, what's the future? What does it look like?
I mean, probably video, right, is a big part of it. And the reason why I say that I'm not super excited about it is I don't particularly enjoy, recording YouTube videos.
Right.
I do it, but it's not something that I would enjoy. If I ever say, oh shit, that's what I have to do. I want to become a YouTube star. What does it cost to become a YouTube star? Be like, I really don't want to be a YouTube star. You know what I mean? But video is absolutely exploding. Right. There's no question there. And so, I'm going to actually be doing some more video stuff. I'm hiring a videographer, but it's never going to be my sole focus. So there's that. And then on the written side of things, of course, written is always going to be a thing, right? People are always going to read articles, and they're always going to read books. And so it's just the level of competition now is what you're up against better content than you were 5 years ago. There are better books out there. And I've seen this I've seen this now. When I first published Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, there was no book like it at the time. If anybody that reads it, there was no book like that. If you read it and you go, with how everything's explained and blah, blah, blah. Now there are a bunch of books just like it, and a bunch of knockoff kind of Me Too's. There's a glut of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger wannabes that have gotten nowhere, though, because what a lot of people don't understand about Amazon in particular is Amazon is a whole world unto itself. Being good at Amazon marketing, you can be a good marketer and have no fucking chance on Amazon, because it's its own bizarre, it's actually a game. That's how I have to think about it. Amazon is a game that has certain rules, and you have to play the game, basically, I guess is the way to say it. And if you don't know how to play the game, yeah, good luck. Unless you can write the next Body for Life. You can write the next book that just people they freak out about, and the amount of momentum you gain overcomes the fact that you don't know how to play the Amazon game. So yeah, I would say that from there it's really just gonna go. I think we're gonna see better and better just written content. Long form is the thing, obviously, and that's not going to change. So the better you can write long form engaging content, the better you are going to do on Google and on the other search engines. And of course, if you're going to play the content game, you're going for organic. You really want, you want millions of visits a month from Google. You don't want to be paying for that. And so that's creating good content and then also knowing the SEO game, which is not super complicated, actually. If you have some money, you can do some interesting things, but you don't even necessarily need money to get in there and start playing if you can create really good content. Because ultimately, as we know, Google's goal is to serve up, somebody goes, if we're talking about content, serve up the best possible content to their searchers. When that person goes and says, how do I lose stubborn fat? They want, the top result to be the absolute best possible result.
Sure.
So if you can go in that direction, not try to game your SEO and keyword stuff and get too lost in the weeds, and focus on how do you create an article so good that someone is going to like go send it to 5 of their friends. If you can do that, then you have what it takes to play the content game, basically. And that's my take on it.
Right. Mike, Muscle for Life is one of your major brands, one of your major websites. Tell me about that. What is that?
So it's right now, I don't, it's the original website that was put up in 2013. So a part of me hates it because it's ugly and needs to be redone. But it's very popular. It gets about right now 1.5 million visits a month or so from Google. It's just all organic. And I publish articles regularly on it. And I have also a couple other people that write with me who also publish, who do a good job. And so it's a very popular blog at the moment, essentially. And but we are overhauling it, and we're putting a store, which it doesn't have a store. I'm a good marketer. And so we're putting a store in it. And I mean, the reason why we've neglected it is because we focus so much on the supplement company, and now we're coming back to Muscle for Life. Anyways, so I'm putting a store, and I'm also going to be launching a number of digital courses, which is something I just have none of right now. And I'm excited for that just because, I'm doing some of the courses myself, and then I'm partnering with some people on other courses who I feel are more qualified, like I'm doing a supplementation course with Curtis, for example. And so the courses are going to be going up on Muscle for Life. And so I'm excited to do that. And I have a coaching service that's a part of Muscle for Life as well. And, but yeah, essentially right now, I say Muscle for Life is like a glorified blog, basically. Like I could tell people, oh, I'm a blogger. What do you do? I'm a blogger.
It's funny, man. I'm actually doing a very similar thing to you with the courses because, as you know, man, your knowledge is your knowledge, and you can't go outside of that knowledge base. And I feel like there's people out there who are much better at certain things than I am. So very, very similar to you. I'm doing a bunch of courses and bringing in some really brilliant people who I'm excited to learn from. And I'm sure my demographic is going to be excited to learn from, man. So I'm super excited to see what you're doing and continue to learn from you. Where can people find more from Mike Matthews other than Body for Life?
I would just say Muscle for Life is probably muscleforlife.com, spelled out. Muscleforlife.com is kind of the hub of all of my things. And if you want to check out the supplements, it's legionathletics.com, Legion, Legion athletics.com.
So you've thrown a bunch of book titles out there, Mike, and I want to ask you. So specific to personal development, I'm going to go in 3 categories. So I'm going to go personal development, business, and fitness. So
okay.
Yeah, and you can't use your own.
So for personal development, let's see, Flow. I really liked Flow by the name that I can't pronounce. Misa
Csikszentmihalyi. Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi.
There you go. I liked that a lot. Really resonated with me. Mastery really resonated by Robert Greene. Really resonated with me. Meditations, which is cliche these days, I know, but whatever.
Yeah.
It did.
No, it's still a brilliant book, man. I actually have it by my bedside. I read a part of it every night before bed.
Okay. So that really resonated with me. I mean, it goes back to a lot of that, just shut up and suffer until you're where you want to be. Right? A lot of that kind of mentality is that's old. Those are old ideas. And I also really like biographies from a personal development standpoint, just because I feel like that's a great way to get raw information that you can do what you want with, as opposed to somebody's pre-digested. And also, in many ways, you have someone that they come into, they want to sell you on an idea, and so they find supporting evidence to sell you on the idea. Okay, maybe the idea is good, maybe it's not good. You can sell bad ideas with very easily if you know what you're doing. Look at the Communist Manifesto for communism. Sure. Terrible idea, easy to sell, but if you're reading biographies, I just like that you get to see people who in some ways did things that you would like to do yourself. And if it's a good biography, you get to walk in their shoes for whatever 500 to 1,000 pages, and you can extract the lessons that I think are probably most relevant to you in where you're at right now. So biographies I really liked, I guess, range from more kind of pop biography, the Elon Musk biography by Ashley Vance, right? It was good. Again, everybody has read it. Everybody says it's good. It is. It's good. I also really liked Titan, which is about John Rockefeller. John Rockefeller. Yeah, John Rockefeller. Oh, yeah. And written by Ron Chernow, who you like writing, read Ron Chernow. He is by far, him and Will Durant are my two favorite writers, just in terms of their ability to communicate with the English language. I mean, it's a true art. I just enjoyed reading them. I mean, especially Will Durant, because he was also just such a brilliant thinker. But it's truly pleasurable just to read their stuff.
Okay, which book would you recommend by Will Durant?
The Lessons of History would probably be, or The Story of Philosophy. Either one of those are a great place to start. For his stuff. And yes, so biographies I'm big on. I'm reading the Da Vinci biography right now, Walter Isaacson's biography of Da Vinci, and it's good. Da Vinci is it's just unlike a lot of the people, because I've been reading before that. I read about Ben Franklin, and so Da Vinci is just a very different character. So it's pretty interesting to see how he lived his life and what that ultimately turned into. And so that's what I'm reading right now. So that's personal development, I guess, in a nutshell. I mean, I could keep going, but that's a good start, I guess. Yep. And then for business, I think it really kind of depends where you're at, right? So I'd say like someone like you, I would recommend probably Scaling Up would be a book that I recommend, because you have businesses, you don't need to read Profit First, for example, which is a book I'd recommend to someone who's maybe just exactly. If you're starting out, or The Lean Startup.
I actually just read that. Just finished it. Profit.
That's
First.
funny. That's funny.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
No, it's just funny that everything you're like, oh yeah, that one. Oh yeah, I know that one. Yeah. I mean, clearly you read a lot of the same stuff, so you know what I'm talking about. So Scaling Up would be something that would be more relevant to you, but not necessarily to somebody who's just starting out. It'd be a bit overwhelming and not applicable. But Profit First would be for someone starting out. The Lean Startup, I would definitely recommend for anybody starting out. I liked Tony Hsieh's. Also, for if you're looking at starting a business, Delivering Happiness, I think was a good story. He had a good story and a good message. And I liked. There's a lot of books that I liked, but like, what are the key ones? I like Danny Meyer's Setting the Table, particularly from the perspective of customer experience. You could say customer service, but really customer experience, and the level that you need to be able to go to really delight people. And Hug Your Haters has a similar message. Silly name, but actually a pretty good book. And I think that's very important. I think that's going to be a differentiating factor in businesses more and more, is that people are becoming more and more willing to pay a premium to be treated well and to be valued as a customer and actually have their questions answered and be taken care of. And I've seen that's a huge thing with Legion, the supplement business, and it's contributed greatly to our growth because of, it contributes to the customer lifetime value, it contributes to the average order size, it contributes to it lowers the churn, right? So it contributes to the average number of orders. When you have people, it's amazing how just doing little things and being like treating your customers just the way that you would like to be treated if you were a customer, and going a little bit above and beyond, like makes people go from this is my first order to like I'm a customer for life now.
I'm never going away. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so I would say that. And also on business, the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. I think if you want to get into business, you have to become a good marketer, or you have to have somebody who's a good marketer, because you can have the best thing, the best widget ever, but if you can't sell it properly, it's not going to go anywhere. Yeah. Yep. So that'd be a good place to start on marketing.
Any fitness books you like?
I mean, this is an area where I think there aren't very many good fitness books.
Completely agree with you, man. I
don't know, man. Like,
agree.
Okay, Practical
People ask
Programming
me that all the time. Yeah. Good.
starting strength, practical programming, the what is it, the lean muscle.
And then you have people who would argue that that's an absolutely atrocious book as far as its ability to actually deliver good.
Yes. No, I understand.
Irrefutable. I've had people recently tell me, like, I've never read it, but I have people that recently tell me, man, like, don't ever go near that, because it's not that I want to throw anybody to the bus, but apparently it's just not good. So I don't know.
I would be curious as to why they would be saying that, because it's very technical. It's not easy to understand. It's not, unfortunately, not written in a way that the layman could just read it.
Well, I was told that it's because it's marketing. It's not written with science behind it. It's written with speculation and marketing.
I would say from a marketing perspective, it's terrible.
Oh,
It's from a marketing perspective, it's terrible.
Sure.
It's ugly. It has a good name. It has a brand behind it, but the writing itself, first and foremost, if you're going to communicate, whether it's writing, speaking, your first, you have to be able to be understood. If people can't understand what it is that you're going to say, don't say it. You're actually inconveniencing people by wasting their fucking time.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So from a marketing perspective, that very much first and foremost means, and that's my primary goal in my writing, is to be clear. I'm not trying to show that I have a good vocabulary. I'm not trying to show that I know technical terms or that I'm a genius. I'm actually trying to explain things as simply as possible so a person can just understand it and do something with it. So from that perspective, starting strength and practical programming fall very short because they require a lot of knowledge. But I think it was the Lean Muscle Diet, Alan Aragon's book. Good information, obviously. I think a little bit complex for the average person, again, when it comes down to doing it, but good information. And shit, man, I don't know. Do you have any books that
I usually tend to go.
I found that's why I wrote Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. I was like, dude, where is just a simple good book that's going to give you some basics that get results?
I tend to go down the route of tell me what you want to know and I'll tell you the book to read. Meaning, if you want to know about gut health, read this one. If you want to know about inflammation, read that one. If you want to know about mitochondria, read that one. There's not one that ties them all together.
But that's health stuff. Health is another thing. I think there are a lot of great health books.
Right. Yeah. But
what about fitness per se? Fitness, getting in shape.
There's not a lot of good ones. We'll change that, Mike. We'll work on that, man.
Yeah. We're working on it.
Yeah, dude, I'm sure people should get out there and read Be Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, because obviously you've got an idea of what you're doing. You got some great information, and tons of people have read it, and that says volumes, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So, dude, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure, and we will definitely be linking all this information at the show notes at benpakulski.com/podcast. Thank you very much, Mike.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
All right, guys. So what do you think of Mike Matthews? Very smart guy. I love his attitude. We need to listen to more people like that who just have a no BS attitude toward life, get stuff done, set big goals, and don't stop at anything until you achieve it, right? It's literally put the blinders on, full speed ahead. But the trick to that is the one thing that I said there that most people aren't going to acknowledge is that there's a goal. There first has to be a goal. In order for you to have an achievement, there needs to be a goal. So if you haven't sat down and set out your goals, I recommend you do that at least once a week. This podcast has been brought to you by ATP Labs. You guys know that I've aligned with ATP Labs because they're the best supplement company that I've found. I truthfully believe in ATP's desire to put the most highly efficaciously designed products together because I care about what goes into my body, and ATP cares about what goes into their supplements. And if you guys want to check them out, atplab.com. And you can use the code BEN10 to get yourself 10% off. And ATP doesn't do discounts. So this is literally the only place you can get 10% off. If you sign up for their email list, their VIP list, you're going to get free shipping. And that's a little side bonus for you. My favorite products, everyone always asks that question, GF, which is a great focus pre-workout. I take it in the morning, even when I'm not training. And I take it pre-training to really nail down my focus because, I'm not a believer in stimulants. I'm a believer in narrowing that focus so that I can maintain that internal stimulus, so that internal focus when I'm training. I don't like getting all wired and weird. So GF is a great supplement for that. And we've just released something called MyoPrime, which is a creatine-based product, 2 different forms of creatine with some peak ATP, HMB, and vitamin D, which is known to be an activator for the HMB. take that pre-workout. I like to take it once a day, no matter what. I even give it to my kids because creatine for kids is actually a lot more beneficial than you think. There's a ton of research around creatine for your kids as far as the brain development and the development of the nervous system. So if you guys have enjoyed the episode, I would always appreciate a review. Share, because if there's someone that you know out there that you know will love this content or benefit from this content, be a good friend and share. Have an awesome day, guys.